Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is a really exciting day for me because this is going to be the final root check that I'm going to do on my Monstera deliciosa Thai Constellation cuttings. About 4 months ago, I made all these cuttings and I'm going to show you the successes and the failures, what I learned along the way, and I'm also going to be planting the successes. So we have a lot to get to, a lot to talk about, so let's get straight to it. So like I said, about 4 months ago, I made several cuttings from this victim right here, this Monstera deliciosa Thai Constellation. I essentially got about 6 cuttings of that, so I'll put the video real quick and show you what I did. So let's see how many cuttings I ended up with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's pretty good actually, that's more than I thought. So yeah, I basically butchered this plant into many pieces because I wanted to see exactly how many cuttings I could get from it and how many would be successful and what would be basically the propagation rate that I personally got from this. So yeah, the mother plant has essentially bounced back. You can see here it has developed an entirely new branch right here. This is where the original branch was right here, and that's what I chopped up. And then this kind of emerged out of the side of a node right here. This was the first leaf. It's not uncommon when you do cut these plants for propagation that the next leaves that they produce are basically juvenile leaves. These do not have any of the characteristic holes that Monstera deliciosas are known for, but you know, any progress is good progress, and that's totally normal to produce such a tiny little baby leaf right there. But as you can see, the next one it produced was much more substantial, so I think in maybe 2 leaves we'll get the fenestrations again, which are the characteristic holes in the leaves. So I'm going to talk about my failures first, get those out of the way because they're kind of bummers. There were 2 that have yet to do anything because now they are dead. These are so sad. But these just never worked out. One of them had a really long aerial root, and essentially just rot kept creeping up along that root, and I would keep snipping it higher and higher and higher, and you know, it just never worked out. Same thing happened to another one, so these 2 were basically failures. So that was a big bummer, but I did have 3 cuttings that were totally successes. So the first cutting success that I'm going to talk about, I actually don't even have with me anymore because I traded it for another plant that I really wanted. So I did that with a friend on Instagram, and that was probably about 2 months ago. So hopefully it kind of developed from there. So the other 2 successes that I have are with me right here. It's these 2 right here. Look how cute they are. Oh, they're adorable. These, you can tell, are in... I have a lot of questions about the water that they're in. So let me talk about that real quick. Once I notice that the aerial roots are converting into normal roots and it's developing its own root system, I usually add a little bit of liquid seaweed. So it doesn't really have much in the way of NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium, and that's totally fine. This isn't really a fertilizer. What it is it provides a lot of trace nutrients and minerals to your plants, which actually affect the way that the plant hormones work. And it really helps the plants create more leaves, healthier leaves, more vigorous growth, and also more importantly, it helps to develop a strong root system. Because without a strong root system, you're obviously not going to have a strong plant. I don't really look at the directions too much. I mean, I should, but I always just add a little bit, and I haven't really had any issues with that yet. So yeah, that's why all my water here is a little murky looking, but I think it does help the growth and the development of the plant itself. So check that out. I'll put a link to that. It can be really helpful, and I actually water all my houseplants with it as well. Also, once again, do not get it confused with your coffee. So the first cutting I'm going to show you is this one right here. I love this one a lot because it has a really cool and extensive root system. This thing has been spiraling around this bottle for a while, so I'm going to show you that. But here is essentially a new branch that emerged from the node, and the node was very, very small, and it was enough to make a new plant. It converted this aerial root and has a nice root system all to its own, so it's ready for planting right now. But let me show you these roots. Those are nice roots right there. So that's about 4 months of growth from when I originally put this in the water and started the propagation process. So this is kind of what you can expect after 4 months. With propagation, you're really playing a waiting game, and it's also it's also a gamble because some of them don't survive. The second one here has these two beautiful leaves right here. With variegated plants, it is almost inevitable that you will have some sort of burning or some sort of dieback on the most variegated parts of the leaves. That's totally normal. You can cut it if it bothers you, but with these plants, you will not have perfect leaves. It's just inevitable. So yeah, let me show you this was probably one of the bigger cuttings that I made. So this was actually the growth tip of the original mother plant that I have right here. So you can kind of tell that this was basically on the end of this plant. So let's take a look at it and see what the root system looks like. So this is a really good root system as well. The seaweed itself will dye the roots a little bit, so just be aware of that. It's not raw, it's just the fact that it's sitting in seaweed water. So that will affect the color of the roots. But yeah, just, you know, from time to time, inspect the roots of your cuttings to make sure you're not dealing with any bacterial issues. And you will also want to replace your water in your cuttings every few days. I find as they develop a better root system, you can do it less and less, but in the early stages, you'll want to replace that water every couple of days or maybe twice a week or so. So yeah, this is a good root system. It's totally ready for planting, and I'll get that done as well. There is also a leaf right here that is kind of getting ready to emerge at some point. This will probably be in the spring. But the most important thing for these cuttings is to develop a good root system. Leaves are really not as important as the root systems. Okay, so here's my soil. I have a lot of it right here. I have it for several different plants that I need to plant over this weekend, but I can use this for these cuttings as well. For this first cutting, I chose a kind of tall pot that I made recently. I find also that with these plants, they're very top heavy, so it's nice to have a very kind of heavy ceramic pot to really weigh it down. So I'll get this going and we'll get it in soil. This one's kind of difficult to plant because it has such a long aerial root that the whole root system kind of came from, so it's not really wanting to bend much. So I'm trying to be careful with it and not upset the roots too much. So it's kind of floppy right now. I'll probably eventually put a stake in here and kind of make sure it doesn't flop all over the place. I will also water it with the water that it has been sitting in because it'll reintroduce some of the beneficial bacteria that has been with the root system for a while. So I'll do that after the video. I might put a small kind of top dressing on it just to kind of solidify the plant itself, but I can do that later, so it's not a big deal. So this root system is a little more typical of what we're kind of used to. It's not as long as the other Monstera. So I'm gonna put this in another one of my pots. This one was a total failure. There's all these the glaze didn't adhere correctly, but it's perfect for me and it still has the same purpose. So I get to keep all the rejects, but it's still nice. So yeah, I will get this in here and we'll see how this works. So again, that's the root system. Good, that's a good size. If you have any interest or you have any questions on the soil that I'm using, I will also put a link up maybe in this video somewhere. I don't know how that works, but I'll put a link somewhere to show you the soil mixture that I use. All right, see, doesn't that look good? All right, so I will also water with this as well over the sink, just to reintroduce that bacteria. All right, so I have a few closing thoughts. Propagation, as you can tell, it's a hit or miss process. There's probably things I could have done to increase that percentage, but you know, a lot of it is just random. You don't know exactly what's going to happen until you do it. Also, I will say that variegated plants do not develop as quickly as non-variegated plants. They don't develop their root system as fast, they don't send out new branches as fast, they don't recover as strongly as some of my non-variegated plants. I have Monstera deliciosas that are younger than this plant. I've propagated them and they, you know, bounce back within just a couple of weeks, or they developed huge root systems in the cuttings in just a couple of weeks, in the same time that this took maybe, you know, 4 months or 3 months. So it's a long process with these plants. It does take a while, and just be patient. Don't beat yourself up if you are propagating these plants. It's a distinct possibility you will have some failure, and that's totally right. It's just another way of interacting with these plants and learning from them. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will probably provide more updates on all my cuttings. I have a lot of other cuttings as well that I can show you. But yeah, this has been a fun one for me. So I hope you will tune in next time, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.